You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Chris in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, TV shows, games, books, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is Jedi Novel Archive, where today I'm going to be talking about Legacy. This is the latest novel from Madeleine Roux, and it's set to come out on July 28th of this month and takes place between the events of The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. So if you guys have been following the show, you know that this is one of my most anticipated Star Wars projects of 2026. Like many of you, I'm a huge fan of Leia. I'm a huge fan of Rey. And just the idea of getting these two characters together for a story, specifically a novel, is fascinating and intriguing, given the amount of different story elements and storytelling that can come from these two characters together. So I would say that in some ways also, it kind of felt like we needed this book, especially coming off of the end of the sequel trilogy and some of the discourse that was kind of going around there. This book is kind of healing in a lot of ways for me personally. So what I wanted to do was kind of give you guys a sneak peek broken up into two parts. So the first part is going to be very high level. I'm going to stay above the surface in regards to the official synopsis. I know there are folks out there that are very spoiler adverse and don't want to haven't even read the synopsis. And so that I'll get into some of the high level stuff there, spoiler free. And then the second part, I want to actually take the synopsis and kind of go almost a line by line and give you guys my commentary and some initial thoughts. Again, all still spoiler free. So to kick things off, one of the things that we like to ask on Jedi Novel Archive is, should I pick this book up? Is it worth reading? And I think definitively, yes, my opinion is you should pick this book up, especially if you are in here for the moments between Rey and Leia, the dialogue that exists between Rey and Leia. They are the main focus of the book, and they carry large portions of the story together, but then also separately in their own kind of headspaces, which is really nice. They are definitely forced into a master and apprentice type relationship. So if you're looking for that aspect of it, how it starts and the development of it, I think you're going to be really satisfied with the book as well. Now, thematically, there are a number of themes that the book toys with. I want to talk about three for this sneak peek. And the first one, of course, is going to be legacy. First and foremost, what does it mean to carry the legacy of a Skywalker? What does it mean to carry the legacy of being a Jedi, being the last Jedi? And then to some extent, there is some thoughts in here about what does it mean to just carry the legacy of hope, right? What we need hope in this time and era in Star Wars storytelling, and that burden kind of falls upon both of our main characters here as well. And keep in mind that while they both are daughters of darkness, as Madeleine Roux puts it, which I thought was beautiful. I love that term. I'm not sure if it's been used before, but as daughters of darkness, you know, those titles play into what we see a little bit and kind of how they struggle or contend with that title from time to time, more from Leia because Rey still hasn't found out about her lineage, but it's definitely talked about in the book as well. The second theme is destiny, and it kind of goes hand in hand with legacy. How much of who we are and who we're going to become is a result of free will versus who we were meant to be. We see a lot of the similarities with Luke as he's kind of struggling with this during the original trilogy. We'll see it with later on with Leia right after the events of the Return of the Jedi. So very thematically very similar to what we see there. And then the last one is loneliness. And loneliness is wonderfully explored with both of these characters, the main characters. For Rey, she comes from a family of, where she had no family. She grew up with no family for the longest part, and she was alone there on Jakku for so many years of her life. And, even now she's carrying this burden of being the last Jedi and restoring the Jedi Order and feeling very much alone, like she doesn't have anyone else there to kind of help her out with that. From Leia's perspective, I mean, she's no stranger to loneliness, right? And especially now, I mean, she lived a great, early portion of her life, but as things, she got into the rebellion, she had a lot of loss. There was a lot of loneliness that came with that. And then by the time we get to the events after The Last Jedi, she's now lost her husband in Han. She's lost her brother in Luke, and she's still struggling with having lost her son, Ben, to, Snoke and the character that is now Kylo Ren. So loneliness plays a huge part of this, and is kind of a through line through all of the book. Now, this is a very well-written book by Madeline Rue. I have to be honest, I had not read anything from her before. And so I wasn't really familiar with kind of her writing style, but I thought she did a brilliant job of keeping the main story moving, and keeping us wondering what was going to be in store for our heroes, our villains. But then also she kind of gave us some really great special moments in between all of that as well, especially when we get to Leia and Rey and their relationship. Those personal moments together and then those personal moments individually were wonderful throughout the book. I think my only real criticism of the book is there were times when I felt like the conflicts or the next steps were being telegraphed, and I was excited to kind of be going there, and then we wouldn't. And I'm all for subverting expectations. Like, I actually enjoy that. I don't mind that at all. But there were times when I felt like I really wanted that to happen. And because it didn't, I felt kind of let down by that. And maybe the payoff for me personally, wasn't as grand or as big as I wanted it to be. And so that kind of, left me feeling like I wanted more from that perspective. But, as with all things, there are other little small nitpicks, especially when it comes to Star Wars, that I'll get into. But I'm going to save a lot of that for the full review on July 28th. Okay, now the next question we like to ask on Jedi Novel Archive is, who is this book for? Well, if you love Leia and you love Rey and you love this idea of them having a master and apprentice relationship, or even a mother and daughter relationship at times, this is definitely, unequivocally going to be the book that you're going to want to pick up on July 28th. Like, you should have already pre-ordered the book. If you haven't done so, go do it now. You're going to absolutely love the book. If you're someone who is a fan of the sequel trilogy, or if you are a Reylo, run, do not walk, and pick this book up on July 28th. Get your pre-order in now. It doesn't technically revolve around Rey and Kylo Ren. He's clearly on the cover of the book. You can see him there. So he does play a role in the book. But from a Reylo perspective and from The Last Jedi, there is a lot of validation that happens in this novel, which I really, really loved and was appreciative of. And you can expect Kylo Ren to kind of be there, but more in the perspective of like how Rey is contending with all of the events that happen in The Last Jedi, and specifically that throne room scene. All right. So if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. You're going to be satisfied, I think, with some of the stuff that comes on in here. And finally, if you are someone who is obsessed with the Old Republic, like me, and you are looking for more context and lore about the canonical era of the Old Republic, like me, you are going to be happy with this book. Because so much of the book takes place on Tython, you'll find, like me, you are going to be taking lots of notes, tracking the references that are dropped in there. So, and honestly, we just need more of the Old Republic these days. And so this was kind of a warm welcome in that regard. Okay, so for the second part of the review, what I want to do now is break down the official synopsis. So if you're very spoiler adverse and you do not want to get into, you haven't even read the synopsis and you just know that, hey, this is a book with Rey, it's got Leia in it, and I'm sold because it takes place after the events of The Last Jedi, and that's all you want to know, good. I would say move on or come back to this later. But I am going to break down the synopsis now, kind of line by line. And there are some, again, not spoiler things, but there's more context and more details here. So the first line reads, after barely escaping the First Order on Crate, Rey and the Resistance are struggling to rebuild. Yes, this is definitely in line with the Resistance at the end of The Last Jedi. They are struggling. They are really on their heels still. And, I'm not really sure how much time has passed since The Last Jedi, but based on the events of this book, I'm going to guess it can't be any more than a couple months, 3 tops. somewhere between 30 and 60 days. So we're still very, very fresh off the heels of the events of The Last Jedi. Okay, the next line reads, her friends need The Last Jedi more than ever, but Rey feels alone and overwhelmed. Jedi tradition is built on masters and apprentices, and Rey's teacher is gone. So here's where the loneliness of it all kind of plays into it. And also keep in mind that Leia and Rey do fall into this master and apprentice relationship, but Leia didn't have a lot of the formal training that we think she might have had with Luke. And the training that she does have was a lot more focused on combat, a lot more focused on lightsaber dueling. Because honestly, she was a better duelist than Luke was. We know this now. So Leia does get to share her own experiences and kind of her own perspectives on the Force with Rey, and she does that as a friend and as a mentor. So, and even a mother, like I said, at times, which is very beautiful to watch. Leia Organa tries to train Rey in the ways of the Force as Luke did for so many years ago, but Leia's knowledge is limited. Rey's lightsaber is broken, and the specter of Kylo Ren and regrets from the past haunt them both. How can Leia pass the torch when she herself is unsure of the way? Now, that specter of Kylo Ren, again, is real, and it plays a huge and important role in the development of both of the characters, which is great. This book does a good job of exploring the regrets and even the guilt of both Rey and Leia and what they carry, the burden of that. But it also does that with a number of other characters, supporting characters that are new to the book. And I'll get into that in just a second when we get to that portion of the synopsis. The next part says, but then the ancient Jedi texts offer a glimmer of hope, a long-forgotten Jedi temple on Tython that might hold the key to repairing Rey's lightsaber. The backdrop of Tython is wonderful. Again, like I mentioned earlier. I mean, personally, I wish she would have explored the planet of Tython as a character itself just a bit more, but I get that wouldn't have been in service to the story per se. I think she does enough to do what she needs to with the planet, but this is a personal preference. Again, this is just me loving Tython. I love all the mysteries of Tython. I feel like I'm a scholar of the Old Republic in that regard. And so it's a personal preference, and I get why it didn't play a larger role. We have so much of what Tython is from Legends. And so, throughout the entire time I was trying to compare and go, oh yeah, this has been affirmed, this has not been affirmed, that kind of thing. So again, personal preference, but we do spend some time on Tython. Rey leaps at the chance to journey there, and to her surprise, so does Leia. So Rey's surprise that Leia is going with her and is an aspect of their relationship that honestly I had not considered. And it's so obvious and so glaring now that I'm like, wow, why didn't I think of this? But I think you're going to really love it. And it was just fun to explore and then ultimately resolve by the time we get to the end of the book. Rey and Leia's nascent mentorship is put to the test when they discover the temple on Tython is filled with obscure clues to decipher and arcane trials to complete. I'll talk about more of this when I get to the actual breakdown, but when I was reading this book, there were big chunks of the book that I felt like I was almost playing a Dungeons and Dragons adventure. I don't know for a fact if Madame Rue has ever played D&D, so maybe she has. I know she's written some D&D novels, but it very much reads like that, and that is absolutely a complete compliment. There's also an insane moment from Rey that happens when she's in the temple, and I think this is going to be up there as one of those top 10 Jedi moments of all time. I'm really excited to see what everyone says, the reactions that people are going to have when they get to this part. So I can't wait to see what you guys think about it. And certainly I want to engage in that conversation when it happens. Okay, just two more lines here. As they work to unravel the temple's mysteries, they encounter a group of refugees living in the shadows, hiding from a First Order officer hot on the trail of two freedom fighters in their midst. So yes, there are, again, as mentioned earlier, there are a number of other new characters that are introduced, but of course I try to stay clear of talking about them too much because a lot of that really is going to start falling into spoiler territory. So that said, I will say that this book introduces a baddie, First Order baddie, that is one of the most cynical, evil, like gross sickos we've ever had. And I say that in the best of light because I really hated her in all the best ways. I think you guys are going to love to hate this character. The other protagonists are fine. This will be some of the other feedback that I have when I get to my full review, and they do well in service to the book. I just wish I had loved them more by the end of the book than I did. I think a lot of that is because you've got Rey and you've got Leia, and they're such monumental, legendary characters now that it really is kind of hard for them to kind of rise to stand out into that way. So it was difficult for me to get there. I think maybe by the end of the book, there's probably one, maybe two characters that rise to that level, or at least were standouts for me, but I'm still kind of struggling with that a little bit. So again, everybody does fine. There's no really bad feedback here. I think all the characters do just a great job of doing what they're supposed to do and servicing the book, like I said. With the threat of the First Order looming and the secrets of the temple yet to be unlocked, the newly forged master and apprentice must confront their pasts, reach each other in the present, and decide what it means to carry the legacy of the Jedi into the future. And yeah, that about summarizes everything that happens in this book between Rey and Leia. Of course, it leaves out the First Order, it leaves out Kylo Ren, it leaves out the baddie that I mentioned. All of those are important. Just one final thought, I guess, on legacy. You know, she does toy with the question of, like, you know, the Jedi have operated a certain way for thousands of years now. Is that really the right way to go? Should she continue to have a Jedi Order set up the way it has been for so long? That's super intriguing. And we've talked a lot about it on the show, about what that new era of the New Republic is going to look like, or the new Jedi Order. And then the very last thing that I'll say is that this book not only gave me one, not only two, but actually gave me three freak out moments. I've already talked about one, which is in the temple and what Rey does. As far as the other two, though, well, I'm not going to say. I'm going to leave that up to you guys. I'm going to tease you with that because I think you're going to know when these moments happen. You will know when they happen. But I really love that there were some really standout moments like that from her. And I can't wait to start talking to you guys about this one and all the other moments that I've talked about here. Don't forget, this book drops on July 28th. I will have my full review on the 28th. That'll be a full discussion. That'll be live. So if you guys have questions or you want to comment, you can do so by joining us on the YouTube channel for that recording. And finally, I just want to say thank you guys for all of your support. Really appreciate all of our Patreon members and everybody that supports the show and everything else we do here. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this sneak peek of Legacy by Madeline Rue. And we'll see you guys here on the next episode.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.